What is going on, y'all? Robert Sykes, KetoSavage.com, coming at you with another AMA Ask Me Anything episode. This one is all about deloads. But before we dive into that, let's roll the intro. All right, so this question is brought to us by Theo, and Theo asks, how do you know when you need to deload? So deload is basically a strategic week of training that is a significantly reduced intensity. The reason you would want to do that is to basically give your central nervous system a break. There are different trains of thought when it comes to deload. Some people like to follow the same lifting format, do the same exercises, but do so at like half of the weight and intensity they normally do. Some people like to maintain the same weight but reduce the rep count significantly. Lots of different ways to go about it. You kind of have to trial and error and see how your body best responds. When I deload, I typically maintain the same exercises, the same supersets, the same rotation, but I'll do so at a significantly reduced weight, like half the weight I normally use, and I'll increase the rep count slightly and just focus more so on blood flow and muscle stimulation, but without near the CNS activation that you would get from lifting a very heavy load. As far as how do you know when you need to do that, there's also different trains of thought. So some people don't do a deload until they start to feel that their body is getting worn down, their CNS is getting degraded, they just feel really fatigued and exhausted, they're having a hard time recovering. So you could certainly do that, but that would be more of a reactive approach than a proactive approach. A really proactive approach would be to have a scheduled deload in your training block every 6 to 8 weeks or so. That's pretty common amongst powerlifters. I'm very guilty of not having structured deloads. I'll oftentimes never take deloads until I'm falling apart. That's not really good. Honestly, I've kind of intentionally been doing that, though, because I've been traveling a lot lately. I've had like a lot of weird weeks. I just kind of make those weeks my deload weeks. Like when I'm gone for a week for a conference, that winds up being a deload week for me. So if you have a lot of travel plans, you can kind of work that in around the travel plans. But when you're like in your normal routine, then just try and go as heavy and hard as possible. But a good proactive approach would be to simply have a scheduled deload week every 6 to 8 weeks or so is going to work well for most people, especially if you are progressively overloading your training throughout that 6 to 8 week span on the normal weeks. And then that deload week schedule hits, you just simply reduce the training load, reduce the intensity, reduce the weight that you're using, and allow the blood to flow, allow the muscle to be stimulated, because you do want to, a deload week is not a week off from training. You still want to activate the muscles. You still want to get that blood flow to the area. You still want to stimulate those muscle fibers, activate that full range of motion. You still want to do all those things. You just don't want to tax your CNS to the point that it is during a normal training block. So having the deload week at a significantly reduced training load makes the most sense. So that's kind of how I would go about it, Theo. Give that a shot, see if that works well for your body, see if that allows you to recover. And then more often than not, you're able to push the needle even further on the week you return post-deload, because your CNS has fully recovered at that point. You're oftentimes able to bust through a plateau, add more weight to the bar, and progressively overload in a better, more efficient manner because you have those structured deload weeks in to prevent injury. If you're reactively doing it and not doing a deload until after you've already injured yourself, then you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. It's much better to be more proactive and then have that structured time in place where you can just really prevent risk of injury. So that is what a deload week is. That is how I would go about structuring them from a timing standpoint. Give that a shot. Let me know what you think. And appreciate the question, Theo. You requested some cookies and cream crunch keto bricks, so I will send some of those your way. For anybody that does not know how these AMA videos work, if you submit me a well-thought-out question via the link in the description below, and I use your question on an AMA video, then I will send you some free keto bricks with a flavor of your choosing. Thank you all for tuning in. Talk to you next time.